What's the story, Morning Glory? What is the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this review of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Season 3, Episode 11, High Stakes and Friendship Breaks. So we are on day 2 of the trip to San Diego. We are by the pool. It's Lisa. I don't know who else. Meredith, Dana. I have no idea who else is with her. But she's talking about how she has been such a really good friend to Jen. And so then Bravo shows us clips of Lisa exhibiting good friendship behavior, but they leave out the clip where Jen, where Lisa was calling her attorneys and trying to figure out if she will be implicated in any way in Jen's legal issues when the feds got on the Sprinter van looking for Jen that day. And Lisa was really worried about, I guess, whatever business dealings that her and Jen had in common, and worried about her being dragged into Jen's legal mess. She got on the phone and talked to all 16 of her attorneys to make sure that she didn't have anything to worry about. And then soon after that, Lisa refused to talk to Jen, would not reach out to Jen, would not, go and see Jen, was completely avoiding her as if this woman had the plague. Now you're talking about how you have been such a good friend to Jen this whole entire time. Okay. Moving on from there, Jen and Angie K are having a discussion, and Jen is finally apologizing to Angie K about pouring the wine on her head and, trying to make nice with Angie K because she does not want that invoice sent to her. So she's trying to smooth everything over because the night before at the dinner where everything fell apart, Jen had said that Angie K is the only one that has been really true and loyal to her. So I guess she won't be getting an invoice because they've kissed and made up now. Moving on from there, they all go to the beach. And I'm looking at these women at the beach and I'm zeroing in on Jen and her attire. And I'm trying to figure out what the hell is going on with what this woman is wearing. She had on, I don't even know what it was. I guess it was like a cover up. And it had these big, wide 80s shoulder pads. And I'm trying to figure out, how does someone find beach attire incorporated with shoulder pads? Like, I didn't understand what was going on there. I don't know where she found this outfit, but she must have scoured the whole entire world until she found a beach cover-up that had shoulder pads. And she looked a little bit on the ridiculous side because from the waist up, she's boardroom, business boardroom. And then from the waist down, she's, beach. That was an odd combination to me. So they play beach games, they go surfing. Then after a while, Heather, Jen, and Lisa, they break away from the group to go have lunch together. When they're at lunch, Jen apologizes to Lisa about yelling at her on the yacht because Lisa had chosen Angie K's side instead of Jen's side in the whole wine pouring on the head fiasco. So she apologizes to Lisa. I guess everything is good with them. And then Heather asks Jen, do you think that our relationship is toxic? And Jen had responded, yes, I do. So then they start going at it. They start going back and forth. And y'all, I cannot keep up with who is beefing and fighting with who, what for, why, on what day. It's hard for me to keep up because they'll be best of friends one day. They're yelling at each other that night. The next morning, they're friends again. And I can't keep up with what's going on. So now we have Heather and Jen going at it, going back and forth. And it's all centered around, I guess, Angie H and the whole Shaw Exposed account, because Jen is very much upset that Heather is still friends with Angie H. And Heather wants Jen to understand that I can be friends with whoever I want to be friends with. Whatever you and Angie H have going on has got nothing to do with my friendship with Angie H. So I'm not going to choose. Jen accuses Heather of being a flip-flopper because, she's on Angie's side, then on her side, and she's Angie's friend and then her friend. And so she thinks that she's a flip-flopper. So I guess to garner more sympathy, Jen says that the reason why she cannot stand Angie H and she thinks that what she did, with the whole Shaw Exposed account was just the worst thing in the world is because on the particular day that the Shaw Exposed account premiered on Twitter or whatever was brought to Jen's attention, that was the day that she was really struggling. She had reached rock bottom. She was feeling the lowest that she has ever felt, dealing with her legal issues, the online bullying. And so then all of a sudden this Shaw Exposed account premieres, and it just really sent her over the edge. And it got so bad with her that she ended up locking herself in the bathroom. Her husband was extremely worried about her, trying to figure out what the hell was going on. She wouldn't open the door. He had to kick the door in. And basically she was going to end it all that day because she just couldn't take any more of the stress and the pressure and the negativity. And it was so bad that she had to be admitted to the hospital, and she stayed in the hospital for 2.5 days. And this all happened on the day that the Shaw Exposed account was brought to her attention. And this is the reason why her and Coach have such a visceral reaction to the Harringtons, because this stupid Twitter account came on that day. So after explaining that, I guess Heather was a lot more sympathetic. It didn't, there was no indication of whether or not she was going to stop being friends with Angie H, but she was a whole lot more sympathetic with Jen. And on the ride home, it seemed like Heather and Jen had gotten a little bit closer. So it seems like they had, patched things up. So later on that night, it is Whitney's Marilyn Monroe dinner. So they all go out to dinner dressed up as Marilyn Monroe, and the very first thing that's brought up is the lunch that Jen, Lisa, and Heather had. So Whitney wanted to know, how was their lunch? What did they talk about? Jen gave a very brief surface answer, and I guess Whitney wasn't satisfied, or Jen thought that the look that Whitney gave indicated that she wasn't satisfied with that answer, with that brief answer. So Jen got upset with Whitney and says, "Oh, so you're digging? You want to know exactly what we talked about?" So then she talks about what happened the day that the Shaw Exposed account was brought to her attention. How bad it was for her that day, what she was going through, the stresses that she was facing, all of that, and what she was about to do. But luckily Coach Shaw, saved her from doing that. So Whitney was shocked, and she was like, "Okay, I'm sorry, excuse me, wasn't there at the lunch, so I don't know what y'all talked about." So then Jen is still upset with Whitney, and then she tells Whitney, "Well, why don't you tell Heather what you said at the hot tub about her?" And I'm thinking to myself, okay, the hot tub, because I'm trying to keep up with, who said what, where, when, and why. And evidently they were at the hot tub about a week earlier. I think this was the day, I have no idea what day it was. So they were all at the hot tub. It was Jen, and it was Whitney, maybe Meredith, I have no idea. And Jen was ranting about Heather and how she's a fair weathered friend. She's a flip flopper. She's not really there for her 100% of the time. And so then Whitney jumped in and said, talked about all the issues that she's having with Heather, and said that she needed a friendship break from Heather. So this is what Jen wanted Whitney to reveal to Heather. But Whitney was taking forever getting there. I don't know if she just didn't want to say it, or if she was too drunk to say it, to get her thoughts together. But Whitney was taking forever to make a point. And it was just dragging on and on and on. And she was going all around the mulberry bush until Jen got so frustrated that she just blurted out to Heather. She said that she wanted a friendship break from you. So of course Heather does her overly dramatic reaction, like she just can't believe what she heard. And so then Heather and Whitney, they're going back and forth, and Whitney is trying to explain to Heather that the reason why I need to set boundaries with you is because you don't hear me. You're very dismissive with me. You downplay everything that I've gone through. And what she was referring to was every time that she brought up her childhood trauma and how she was dealing with all of that, it seemed like Heather would just, downplay it or be real dismissive with it. And she also says that every time that she tries to talk to Heather, Heather just doesn't hear her. And so this is the reason why she needed a break from Heather. So they're going back and forth constantly, and people are jumping into their argument, and it just went on and on and on and on. That was like the longest dinner I have ever seen, and nothing really was being said. The frustrating thing is, us as the viewer, we got it. We understood where Whitney was coming from. And the fact that Heather wasn't getting it or refusing to understand it, and making Whitney want to try to over explain herself, and them interrupting each other, it just really was difficult to watch. It was torturous to watch because the scene never ended. So bottom line, Whitney's hurt by Heather because Heather doesn't listen to her, minimizes her trauma, and minimizes the importance of their friendship. Heather kept roping in other people into the conversation, and that's the thing that Heather does. When the heat is too much on her, she starts, pointing fingers to other people and bringing other people into the mess. And the other people are like, that ain't got nothing to do with us. This is an argument strictly between you and Whitney, or strictly between you and Jen. It's got nothing to do with us. And so Heather, I realized, and I was like, Whitney, that was very observant of Whitney to point that out, because I didn't realize that until then, that's what Heather does. When she is in the hot seat, she has to have somebody sitting right next to her. Moving on from that, thank God that scene finally ended. So after that, they all go clubbing. They have a great time clubbing. They're all drunk as hell. They come back home. They're stumbling around to their rooms, flopping around in the pool, just acting complete fools. So each room, I guess, has an inside camera, like a little surveillance camera. And what we see with Heather, like around 3 o'clock in the morning, she goes into her room, and then at 4:50, I don't know, something awakens her, I guess, and she goes back. We see her at 3 o'clock. We see her come into her room. We see her lock the door, like she's done for the night. Her door is closed. Her door is locked. She's done for the night. But then, like around 4:50 a.m., we see her get up. She walks back to the door. I guess she opened the door, and then the scene ended right there. The next time that we see Heather, it's the next morning, like around 11 o'clock in the morning, and Jen Shaw's with her, and we hear it was either Heather or Jen calling Meredith, asking Meredith to come to Heather's room. So Meredith comes, and they're sitting at the table, and Meredith is like, y'all are scaring me. What's going on? So then Heather takes off her glasses, and that's when we see that she's got this really mean, nasty looking black eye. I mean, her eye was like non-existent. It was like just so shut and black and blue, and it just wasn't there. It was just like a slit. And so, of course, the show ends. We have no idea what the hell happened. Oh, and she also shows some scratches on her arm. So it's like, what in the world happened, Heather? When they were showing the previews of this particular scene, I was like, okay, here's Bravo being overly dramatic. I doubt anybody hit her. She probably ran into something, ran into a wall, or ran into a door in her drunken state of mind. Or she got bit or stung by a bee or something. But then when she showed the scratches on her arms, I was like, wow, it looks like she got into a fight. It looks like something really major happened there. Yeah, so that was the end of that scene. That was a huge cliffhanger. We're all waiting on pins and needles to find out what the hell happened to Heather. But thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. It is exhausting talking about this show and just keeping up with everything. I really do appreciate you spending this time with me. On your way out, do not forget to rate the video if you like this content. Please go ahead and subscribe, and I will definitely talk to you later. Bye.